I need you to have it in mind that Dr. Paul Enenche is very close to several government personnel. We've seen the ex-president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, come to his church. We've seen the ex-governor of Akwa Ibom in Nigeria come to his church. We've seen ex-presidents from other African nations come to his church. We've also seen him celebrated and appreciated by great government personnel overseas. But however, there are other government leaders who in an unusual way hate his influence and attempt to frustrate his ministry at any given opportunity. There are several cases where he was bullied, treated unfairly, and in this video you're about to see what really happened, what led to it, and who was involved. To get the full picture of the story, we need to go back in time. In the year 2007, Dr. Paul Enenche's church, Dunamis, had grown so significantly. They had an auditorium that could seat a little close to 5,000 worshippers. However, the membership outgrew this auditorium in a very short time, to the point where they had an average of 30,000 members who were coming to worship at special services. So they had to find a solution to ease the stress of worship. How would they take care of this tens of thousands of worshippers when they only had an auditorium of 5,000? It got to a point where they had up to 7 services on Sundays just to control the massive inflow of members. But in meetings like the crossover services and special night videos, they could not break these meetings into various multiple services. It was really an issue. So to address this, in July 2007, they rented the Abuja National Stadium. This stadium could seat about 60,000 people at the same time. So they planned to use it for an all-night service. And as you can imagine, it was a huge relief. Everyone could sit down inside this stadium together without stress. But something shocking was about to happen. Later in that same year, they used the same stadium for 2 more of such programs. One in the month of August, then another in the month of September. For each meeting, they paid about 10 million naira for the use of this stadium, 5 million for the rental, while the other 5 million went for caution deposit. However, shockingly, after the September meeting in the National Stadium, the government at that time refused to grant Dr. Paul Enenche permission to use the stadium again. They claimed they had decided not to rent the stadium to any church anymore, thus forcing him and his congregation back to the auditorium, which could barely accommodate a small percentage of them. But obviously, it was an attempt to frustrate his influence. It was so uncomfortable to see one man control that much of an audience, as if that was not enough. Many years later, there was a threat to arrest him by a different government that ruled in a northern state of Nigeria. I'm sure you know Dr. Paul Enenche is a leader who has zero tolerance for injustice. So here is what happened. At that time, there happened to be so much unrest across the northern part of the country. So Dr. Paul Enenche condemned the evil and unrighteous treatment some Christians and a Christian chief in particular received in southern Kaduna. As a result, the government at that time threatened to arrest Dr. Paul Enenche for speaking against the government. However, this plot to arrest him was abandoned. But a few months later, there was a plot to bring down all Dunamis churches across that state. It was so unbelievable. It became a national issue, making headlines. The entire situation was clearly a conspiracy to mock and silence his influence. As if that was not enough, there came another attempt of a forceful display of power against Dr. Paul Enenche when he built his world record-breaking 100,000-seater auditorium. Recall I showed you earlier how the government stopped him from using the National Stadium for his programs? Dr. Paul Enenche told his church members, "We are going to build our own stadium, since they said we should not use theirs again. We are going to build a stadium where the rain will not beat us, where the scorching sun will not affect us, and most importantly, we can use it anytime we want without restrictions." It was an unbelievable vision. It looked so impossible. Nobody ever thought this would ever come to life. But however, he continued with that vision to build his own stadium, and there again he faced several attempts to frustrate the project. At times where they had to import building supplies and inventory from overseas, the government charged him heavily for import duties. As if that was not enough, by the year 2018, when he had completed his own stadium, which is the 100,000 seat auditorium you see today, there came a very big problem. The mega auditorium is located across a very major highway in the city of Abuja. Members found it hard to cross the 10-lane expressway before service and after service. It was really a burden, and so to ease this burden of the congregation, Dr. Paul Enenche made an attempt to get an approval to construct a flyover bridge across the expressway. But there again, the governmental powers showed up. They refused and denied him permission to construct a flyover bridge across this 10-lane major expressway to help ease the movement of worshippers who needed to cross it before and after service. Interestingly, we could have taken this as just a mere coincidence, because a short distance away from the 100,000 seat auditorium is ShopRite, and guess what? ShopRite was able to get a flyover right in front of their shopping mall, but Dr. Paul Enenche was denied permission to build a flyover despite having thousands upon thousands of people flowing week in, week out across this 10-lane major expressway. It was really frustrating. They went all out to frustrate him as much as they could. So what can we take from all this? Well, it's obvious that the gates of hell have made great progress in fighting against the church through governmental leaders who have no regard for God, the church, or God's servants in ministry. However, it is written that the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church, and that is why Dr. Paul Enenche cannot be defeated. He was able to overcome the issues of the National Stadium by building his own mega auditorium. He literally has overcome all attempts to be arrested or silenced. In the year 2022, after much press, he received a letter of approval to construct the flyover. By God's wisdom, God's strategies, he has been able to overcome all conspiracies and evil agendas thrown against him. He has won every battle so far and remains amongst the great God generals the world would ever see. While you think on that, I have a wonderful story on Titan that you should not miss. You can check it out right now by clicking this video on your screen. I'll see you right there in the video. I celebrate you.